If these nuclear sites leak, assuming something even worse than pollution doesn't happen, you could be badly irradiated in your air and water, at the very least. Kevin Kamps from Beyond Nuclear comes and tells us all about this. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. So, New Mexico getting a radioactive waste dump? It's amazing that we're even still having these conversations. We've been debating this stuff since the 1960s. Kevin Kamps is on the line with us. He's the nuclear waste specialist at beyondnuclear.org. Kevin, and the Twitter handle is Beyond Nuclear. Kevin, welcome back to the program. Tell us about this.
Thanks, Tom. It's powerful to hear that testimony from Chernobyl because that's our slogan for this proposal is Mobile Chernobyls. The material, the irradiated nuclear fuel, highly radioactive waste, is the same stuff that exploded and burned at Chernobyl. And you just described how, they were in thick armored vehicles, right? And they were worried about getting killed through the armor. So, yeah, these containers they'd use for shipping the waste from mostly eastern reactors out to New Mexico, yeah, it's thick-walled, but is it thick enough to survive a severe accident? Is it thick enough to survive a terrorist attack? Likelihood is no. They're probably going to have breaches and release contents, and it's going to be a radiological catastrophe. They're talking about shipping 10,000 giant containers out to New Mexico from eastern reactors and parking them in southeastern New Mexico, and chances are it'll just stay there at the surface forever.
And how are they going to be shipped? Is this by truck or by rail car? And what are the dangers associated with that?
They say mostly rail because these containers are so big. They're 180 tons in weight, so they can't go down the interstate highways. They're too heavy. So it's mostly rail, but there's 24 plus reactors in the country that lack direct rail access. So they're going to have to use either heavy haul trucks or barges on that front leg to get the waste to the nearest railhead, put it on a train, ship it out to New Mexico. In a place like Michigan, those barge shipments are on Lake Michigan, into the Port of Muskegon, on the Wisconsin side, into the Port of Milwaukee. If one of these things goes down and releases its contents into Lake Michigan, that's going to poison the drinking water supply for 40 million people in 2 countries and a large number of Native American First Nations.
Whoa. Did you say that there were 2,000 reactors in the United States?
No, there's a total of 129 commercial reactors. Unfortunately, a lot of them have shut down, not enough. There are still 94 operating. And at every one of these 129 commercial reactors in the country, they are still sitting on most or all of the high-level radioactive waste they've ever generated. And that's our preferred alternative to this insane whole-tech plan in New Mexico, is hardened on-site storage. And where that's not safe enough, then near-site, as near as possible to the point of generation, to buy us some time to figure out what to do long-term. But instead, they just want to rush into this Mobile Chernobyl campaign and stick it to New Mexico, which has already gotten it, for 75 years, ever since Los Alamos set up shop, ever since the Trinity blast. It's been nuclear colonialism and radioactive racism for the people of New Mexico, who are majority minority. They are Latinx, they are indigenous, they are black. The minority is white. So guess where they're choosing to ship all of the high-level radioactive commercial waste in the country?
Amazing. And tell us about the part of New Mexico where they want to put this stuff. And what, are they just going to store it in drums on the desert? I mean, how do they do this?
Well, these canisters are stainless steel. They are thin-walled, so you need radiation shielding around these canisters, or you're going to get a fatal dose of radiation, just like in that Chernobyl testimony you read. So Holtec's plan is to dig pits in the desert floor and lower these things down in there. They've had problems with that process at San Onofre, California, for example. They almost dropped one. It's like a 20-foot drop, and it could have breached the canister if they had at San Onofre a couple years ago. So it's a very problematic plan. The environmental injustice is immense. So you've got a group like Alliance for Environmental Strategies, a Latinx environmental justice group in southeastern New Mexico. The NRC licensing panel would not even recognize their legal standing in the proceeding. So the NRC proceedings are an environmental injustice. And what do you got in that neck of the woods? You got uranium enrichment at Urenco, right in Eunice, New Mexico. You've got Waste Control Specialists, National Low-Level Radioactive Waste Dump a few miles away in West Texas. You've got the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant, that's military plutonium disposal, all in this little neck of the woods with plans for more nuclear facilities. But this Holtec high-level radioactive waste dump, it would be the biggest such dump in the world, is, just the biggest environmental injustice of all. And that's saying something.
There was a lot of organized opposition to doing this to Nevada back in the day, back when Harry Reid was from Nevada was running the Senate. Is there organized opposition to this? I mean, is this a done deal, or is this something in process? And if so, how can people insert themselves into that process?
It's in process. Today is the last day for public comment on this proposal. And so comments are going into the Nuclear Regulatory Commission by the thousands. At our homepage, beyondnuclear.org, we have simple web forms you can use to, file your individual comments. We also have groups signing on to a coalition letter. We're over 100 groups now across the country. And with such efforts, we stopped the Yucca dump for the past 33 years. Incredibly, Holtec and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission are assuming that Yucca is still going to be the permanent repository. That's how they justify calling this plan in New Mexico interim or temporary. Yucca is not happening. And so this New Mexico dump is going to become de facto permanent surface storage. I call it a parking lot dump.
Is this above the Ogallala Aquifer? I mean, is there, if one of these things breaches, in addition to the risk on the surface, is there an underground risk as well?
There are aquifers beneath this New Mexico site. In fact, there are surface water bodies. Laguna Gatuna and Laguna Plata are immediately adjacent. So there are surface and groundwater impacts. The Ogallala is not far away. And in fact, that Waste Control Specialist low-level radioactive waste dump in Texas, 40 miles from this Holtec site, has also proposed a high-level radioactive waste consolidated interim storage facility. And WCS is right on top of the Ogallala. They changed the paperwork in their license application to make it look like the Ogallala had moved. I mean, the Ogallala fluctuates with rainfall over time. It is right above the Ogallala, so it would put 8 states' groundwater at risk from, Texas up to South Dakota. The Ogallala Aquifer is named after the Oglala Lakota in South Dakota. That's how far that aquifer extends.
Wow. Yeah, I know it's a big chunk of the central part of the United States. We're talking with Kevin Kamps, the nuclear waste specialist at beyondnuclear.org. Kevin, you said that your preferred, and I assume, when you said you're referring to Beyond Nuclear, but that your preferred way of dealing with the nuclear waste that's being produced by the nuclear power industry right now is on-site, secure, safe storage. What does that look like? We've got a minute left to a break here, Kevin. Is that, like glassifying it, or is it burying? I mean, how do you do that? And is that safe?
Yeah, we've got 200 groups from all 50 states who have endorsed hardened on-site storage. And what it looks like is get the irradiated nuclear fuel out of the pools to prevent catastrophic fires that are possible, and then put it into dry casks, yes, but dry casks that are well-designed, well-made, and then fortified against attacks, safeguarded against accidents, monitored for radiation, pressure, and temperature. None of that is going on. We're taking huge risks with the storage right now. And even if this New Mexico dump opened today, it would take decades to move all the waste out there. That means decades of risk at the reactor sites, inevitably. So why not do it right at the reactor sites? That's what we've been calling for 20 years at this point.
Are they proposing to do this on tribal land?
Yes, the Mescalero Apache are nearby, and the Comanche have holdings, the Hopi have holdings down there. This is tribal land.